Well, welcome to another Safer Together chat. I'm Jamie Norpel, and we have two amazing guests today. I have Chawna Griffith, and she's going to talk about The Rock. I have Da'laine Simpson, and he is going to talk about Bro2Go. So we'll start with you, Chawna. Could you give us a little background on what does The Rock stand for and what do you do?
So The Rock is the Reentry Opportunity Center. It is located on the campus of York County Prison. It is a center that is truly focused on helping to bridge the gap of access between individuals who are leaving incarceration and service providers who are also available in the community. We specialize in transitional support because too many times we're seeing when people leave incarceration, they'll tell us about a great program that they did while they were incarcerated. However, that program doesn't exist in the community. So here in York County, our strategy is to get the community service providers into the Reentry Opportunity Center so that people who are currently incarcerated in work release or who are leaving incarceration can come over and meet with service providers who they can then continue the relationship with out in the street. The Reentry Opportunity Center is basically the home base for York County's Reentry Coalition. And the coalition is made up of over 100 individuals, for-profit, and nonprofit organizations who basically have all come together and said, we believe in reentry. We believe that people are not throwaways once they get involved in the criminal justice system. We as a community want to come together and we want to be able to provide people with supports prior to leaving incarceration so that they know there's a community that's waiting for them with open arms.
That's amazing. And you clearly said this before. Wow, you talk about a 30-second elevator.
I know, right? Gosh, I just got it down better than me.
It's also different when you believe in it, right?
Yeah.
When you believe in what you're doing, when you support what you're doing and you support the people. Like, this is definitely a passion of mine because I've seen where, my son would have been 24 this year. I've seen where some of his classmates, some of his neighbors have went into the system, and when they come out, there just wasn't anything that was available to them. And we as our local community was trying to find ways to help them. And I just look at it like, well, if I can help on a bigger sense, then to me, then that's just meaningful altogether. Yep. So definitely, yes, 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, because this is just something that I'm passionate about. I also want to reframe how we think about reentry. Often people think about the person who's coming out of incarceration not as their neighbor, right? Not as their classmate, but as somebody they don't identify with. But little do people understand, it is our neighbors. It's the person across the street. It's the person bagging our groceries. It's the person in the cubicle next to us. They just had a hiccup and it didn't define their life.
I love the way you phrase that. And one of the partners you work with is Da'laine. Could you walk us through Bro2Go and what services you offer? And I love if you could share your story of how you even got into it.
Oh, yeah, I want to start with that. I got more than her minute or 30, So Bro2Go was founded in 2017 after I served 90 days between Dauphin County Prison, like 2 weeks, 3, and then the rest of it was in work release for traffic violations. I'm like, I'm going to jail for this, but I did it. I was that person that didn't pay tickets. I didn't have speeding tickets, like parking tickets, dumb stuff. But in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, that will take away your driving privileges. So that's what happened to me. And I got like one of them driving without a license. I'm like, okay. And then I got another one. And I'm like, I got another one. And before I know, I had 6 consecutive driving without a license. So Judge Joseph Lindsay said, you're going to jail.
Wow.
I'm like, today?
Yeah.
You're going to jail.
Was it that day?
That day.
Wow.
I went to jail in March. And I didn't come home till June. My whole life just like stopped and halted. So while I was in work release, actually I came up with the top logo, our original logo. I came up with the logo while in work release. And I always tell people it was not the need of me. At the time, I still worked for the federal government, just got 17 years of federal service last week. So I had a job. I had stability. My mom was still alive. It wasn't for me. Bro2Go was not for me. It was for the individuals around me who didn't have resources, who didn't have anyone on the outside working on home plans, working on vital documents like their ID, their driver's license, their birth certificate. It was for them. It wasn't for me. So I'm in there and I'm like, I got to do something because I'm a creator. I'm a visionary. So I came up with the logo. Never knew nothing about a nonprofit at all. Google and Ask Jeeves was my best friend because I didn't know. Nothing. So literally, I came up with the logo. I came up with the structure of what I wanted this program to look like. I got out of work release June 29th, 2017. I'll never forget. I went to bed on the 28th, clothes on, ready to go. Like, look, when it's, 6 a.m., and they say bag and baggage, I know that's me. I got out, went home, and I actually, never forget, I was sitting on my front porch at my mom's house thinking like, wow, like I was just away just for those couple months. I can only imagine how it feels for people to be away for a couple years. And here I am coming home, and I'm like, I got to reshape and redevelop what my life looks like. And when I was in work release, a lot of the guys like, oh, you're just jail talk and you're not going to start a nonprofit. I'm like, well, let's back it up. I've never been incarcerated. I've never been in jail. So there's no way I could be jail talking because anything that I want to do, I'm going to do. So created Bro2Go. We had our first board meeting September 9th, 2017. And
wow, that's summer. You made that.
That's how fast we were going. So had our first board meeting. And I thought like, hey, I'm going to go. All of these things are going on. 2 days before that board meeting, my mom went to the hospital what she thought was the flu. My mom just got back from a trip. Thought she had the flu, was laying on the couch for like 2 or 3 days. I'm like, oh, you need to go to the doctors. You're not getting any better. Here they say, okay, well, we think she has pneumonia. That was on Sunday when they checked her in. By Monday, okay, something else is still going on. Ran test, found out she had cancer. Came back by that Tuesday, I was like, oh, you're on stage 4. My mom was gone the following week.
After your first board meeting?
After my first board meeting. My mom was in a hospital doing my first board meeting. Wow. But here I am thinking like Bro2Go is my fresh start. That is my biggest thing that year. Mind you, I was away for 90 days. And I was only home for 90 days before I lost my mom. So now here I am thinking that my biggest sentence was me being incarcerated. Where here, my biggest sentence was one I didn't know I was serving with losing my mom in 90 days once I came home. Wow. I didn't know it. So lost my mom September 27th, 2017. Buried my mom October 7th, 2017. Had my second board meeting October 11th, 2017.
So you didn't skip a beat. You kept going.
Kept going. Wow. I'll never forget. Literally, my board president, who was back then was our treasurer, Brandon Flood, we're in my dining room of my house, and my house is like a funeral home because there's flowers and, still from a funeral, in my house, and we're having our second board meeting. And a lot of my family members and friends are like, well, you should take time to pause. I'm like, no, Bro2Go now is my therapy. Bro2Go is now helping me because guess what? I was a mama's boy. I still lived at home. So for me, if I didn't have the strength of being me, I could have gave up, Could have said, well, you know what? I can't do this right now. It's not about focusing on anyone else. I need to focus on me. But me focusing on Bro2Go was focusing on me.
Well, and so you talk about support systems. I think that a lot of people watching, including myself, we don't realize our privilege of like if I were to go away to prison, I have a husband, I have a child, I have a family, I have an income. Talk to us about the people that go to prison, they serve their time, and the idea is you come back and you're able to re-enter society and you're able to make of yourself. What are some of the things that they lose along the way that the rest of us take for granted that they actually don't have?
Well, even with support systems, sometimes your support system, they don't know where to start and they don't know how to support you. And I'm sure that you have a husband that'll Google, right? Because he's invested, he wants his wife to come home, he wants her to be successful. But if you're in a situation where it's a 2-income household or any multi-income household, losing that one income in most situations is such a detriment that you then have to be helpless as your family is going through something and your family doesn't know where to turn for help. They don't understand that loss of an income could even assist them with getting childcare help because now your family is in an emergency situation. What food pantries are associated with them? And that's some of the biggest things that we're seeing as a need right now here in York County. We're such a resource-rich county, but there are just so many people who don't know which way to turn. So programs like ours are important because not only are we helping the individual, we're trying to support the support system too, to help them understand
the families that lost their individual
families, loved ones, good friends, sometimes even coworkers who are like, you know what, Da'laine was a good coworker to me. I want to see him through this, even though he may not keep the job. That coworker may just want to be there for him, staying in touch with him, helping to keep his spirits up. But sometimes they don't even know, well, how do I write him?
Right, and also, Right, and also it's good to add in there, when you say support system, what we find in Bro2Go, and mind you, we have this York office and one in Harrisburg, and I could say in both offices, and Ms. Cat, who runs this office, could tell you, support systems aren't always the correct support systems, right? So there's a lot of people where, guess what? It was the boyfriend. It was the girlfriend. And I will never say that had a person out using or becoming an alcoholic, because I'm huge on self-control. I'm huge on it, right? But sometimes that support system is a support that they shouldn't have.
Like they're enabling them and getting them.
That's right. And we got to normalize that, because you have people in jail and counselors will be saying, oh, well, you know, they're here to support you. You can't tell a person who their support system is, because guess what? You know one side. You see the person that's going to court. You see the person that's rating the person, right? But you don't know that they're the trigger for the person to use. They're the trigger for the person to continue to become alcoholic.
Or to sell drugs.
Or to sell drugs.
Or to sell automatic weapons, because
Right.
sometimes it's lack of education, right? So you have people who will turn to unconventional means to make money because they have to survive. Well, if you have the support at home who's telling you, you need to go out there and do this.
Right.
Because we need money.
Right. Well, that was easy money and you were good at it. And, you know, even if you take the charge, you know, you get caught, that's still $10,000 that we didn't have. And the judicial system has shied away from that, especially when it comes to the family reunification piece, right? What does that look like? It is 2025. It is not 2000. It is not 1990. We are in a different world today where we also have to normalize what relationships look like.
Yes.
You know, I just had a conversation through Union Energy a few weeks ago, and a pastor said, you know, well, you have, you know, male and females. Well, it's 2025. That's not true. You have same-sex households, right? And those weren't comfortable conversations you could have before, whether it was two females or two males. It is a different world. We have to normalize different families. Because that's huge, because another reality is that we have shied away from people living in their truth.
Yes.
So much to where, guess what? We have told people, you have to be with a female, you have to have kids, where people are like, well, you know, my best friend, you know, is actually my boyfriend, or my girlfriend is actually, you know, my partner. We have to normalize that, because what we also find with people being incarcerated is their truth. And people struggle in their truth. Can that lead them to jail? Yes. Can that lead them to work release? Yes. Why? Because guess what? There's a struggle.
So one of the things that you're hitting on is there's this spectrum of people who believe in it's personal choice. People make the choice to sell drugs, the choice to bring the alcohol up to their lips, and then you have the other side of the spectrum, which is there are systems in place that make it very difficult for these people to actually step away from those. And the majority of people watching this are going to fall somewhere on that line, right? And hopefully most people are in the center. We recognize there's personal choice, but also there's
accountability.
There's a lot of things that happen. So walk us through. Like someone gets released, and because one thing that surprised me was like they don't have their birth certificate. Like if you're released, you're trying to get a job. When I go to apply for a job, I just go on my Google Drive, I pull up my resume, you know, I pull up my driver's license, I pull up my birth certificate, I pull up my vaccine, like things that I've had. But people who were in situations where they were incarcerated usually don't even have to get started. So how do you guys then walk them through that process?
So, you want to go first? You want me to go first?
I'm going to go first.
Okay, go ahead. You go. You started, and I'll bring it up the road. Okay.
One thing we have to recognize is a lot of people who get incarcerated will lose everything. So even with the support systems in place, you have individuals who will lose their apartment, or who live by themselves, or who were barely making it as is. So they were arrested with whatever they had, and whatever was somewhere else in a storage, in a P.O. box, it's now completely gone. So they've lost those identifying documents. What we try to do is we try to, while they're still incarcerated, try to get them those things. But it's hard, right? Someone cannot use York County Prison as their mailing address at all. Someone can't put homeless and just get their stuff. Like that's a barrier. So we have certain systems that are in place to help someone with that. But then for us, just on the reentry side, or the coalition side, we have to lean on our partners. So It's important for us to have partners that we actually trust. Because to Da'laine's point, when you said family reunification, that bell went off for me. Because we only have very few organizations that are truly doing that work. A lot of people will utilize those titles to say they're doing this work, but they're not actually doing the work.
Right.
So for us, with that, it's Bro2Go is our biggest, Bro2Go and Union Lutheran Church are our biggest supporters when it comes to helping with identifying documents. We'll lean on the prison service in order to get people their identification. But when it comes to social security cards, birth certificates, and someone has to fill out that complicated application, we'll help walk them through it. We'll utilize Bro2Go as a mailing address just to be able to get it sent to a person so that they have that document so that we can help them move along. It's one thing to give someone an application and say, here's how you get your birth certificate. Who's paying for this? Where are they getting it sent?
Yeah.
How are they picking it up securely without having to fear that someone's going to steal it and then they're going to have an identity issue?
Wow.
It's so many things that we all take for granted because we've never been in those situations. We've never had the misfortune to have to navigate that. And for us, it's important that we have the partners who know what to do, who know how to make the connections, but most importantly, who's reliable.
Yeah, and this is where I tag in because it takes for us. So as Bro2Go is on the outside, right? So as you said, your vital documents, things that you are going to need the minute you are released from York County Prison, you are going to need to have an ID. You're going to need to have two forms of identification, rather it's your birth certificate or your social. Some jobs want all three. In the world of being scammed, can you blame them? No. But what can we do to take away barriers? That is what Bro2Go was created for. I want a person to be able to come into this office, utilize one of these laptops to look for jobs, create a resume. Because another reality is you're not going into even McDonald's giving a paper application. They're going to tell you to do what? Go online. Another reality is you can't do everything on your phone. You can't. You can't upload your resume on your Android phone because you're getting out of jail, you don't have the newest tech phone, right? You have a phone that you can send a text message, maybe check an email or make a phone call, right? But Bro2Go was created to be the one-stop shop. And where we have been able to be even more successful is the partnership with The Rock, with the York County Reentry Coalition, to make sure that, hey, when we got John B., I like John B. That's my favorite singer too. I hate seeing John Doe all the time, right? But we got John B. getting out of work release next week at the end of the month on February 28th, right? What is the next for him, right? Where can he go to make sure that all his documents have been sent, right? We have individuals now where we have their bank statement, where we have their birth, because guess what? Life doesn't stop, okay? And we want to make sure that when they get out, they don't got to start all over again, okay? Or we can still keep things going. We have admin in place that can make phone calls to other partners to say, hey, what are we setting up for them? We call it our Go Reentry Plan. We're setting up a plan for housing. We're setting up a plan for a job. We're setting up a plan to make sure if there is a family unit, it can be connected. We're setting up the plan and we're taking away the barriers.
Well, because what you guys are doing is, so someone commits a crime, they go and, quote, serve the time, but then recidivism is a real...
That's right. And I spoke on this for the York County Rotary maybe 2 years ago. Was it 2 years? 23? Yeah, 2 years ago. And the biggest thing I tell people is they say, oh, well, I don't understand why, the county is throwing our tax dollars into reentry. I said, well, it's simple. I would rather see my tax dollars being pushed into reentry to programs that are going to ensure that when people come home, that they are going to be successful. What does that mean? If we're not pouring money into these organizations that are serving reentrants and even at-risk youth, then guess what? When they're coming home and they're reoffending, okay, they're selling drugs in your neighborhood, they're, even prostitution, that's another big one, right? In your neighborhood. So would you rather see that there's services that are going to help and support them not to go back, or they're going to go backwards because we didn't support them?
Right.
Either way, it's your tax dollars.
Right.
And I will say this, the average recidivism rate is 64%. York County's 22%.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yes, York County's recidivism rate is 22%. For people who have received services at the Reentry Opportunity Center when we opened on April 15th of 2024 to December 31st, The rate of individuals who are reincarcerated is only 7%.
Wow.
So the proof is there.
Proof is in the pudding.
If people are surrounded with services that they actually need, but it's a la carte. It's you decide. These are not court-ordered services. We're not telling you what it is that you need. You are voluntarily signing up and you're voluntarily making a commitment to yourself. But we have a saying at the Reentry Opportunity Center: we will work as hard with you as you work for yourself. So if you are just there showing up, we're just going to be here when you show up. But if you're here dedicated and you're doing the job searches every day, you are putting in the resume, you're taking in the time to understand how to do a phone interview, we're going to continue to coach you through that. Recently, we had an individual who I just happened to have had encounters with, and kid to me, but he's about 27 years old. Have had encounters with him in the community. I used to work in York City School District. Had known the individual, and there was a trust because he knew that, hey, Miss Chawna cares. That's different too.
Yeah.
When people understand that you're there truly for them, especially in a situation as in incarceration, they feel like there's someone who's advocating for them. They feel like there's someone who's trust them. It gives them this spark of hope that they probably didn't even know still lived within inside of them.
And also not judging them, right? So our theme for Bro2Go from 2025 for the next 2 years, because we're on 8 years, we turned 10 2 years. So we have a 2-year theme. And our 2-year theme is rising to the challenge. Right? And it's not even just for the clients we serve, it's for our staff. How are we rising to our biggest challenge? Okay? From, rather it's to stay sober, right? It's a challenge, right? Heck, for some people, it's just to keep a job. It's a challenge. Are you rising to your challenge? It's something we have to do every day.
One of the biggest misconceptions that I'm hoping this podcast breaks is that you guys are not providing a hand out and hand up.
No, that's right. Because guess what? I've been in this thing now going on 8 years. I can smell bullshitter, okay? I kick him out this office all the time. I do.
So people come in, you can tell they're not actually.
Oh, yeah. I had a guy tell me, well, I'm not listening to him, and he wants to do this. I said, well, sir, one thing you're not going to do is disrespect me. Well, he literally asked me, did I want to step outside? And I thought to myself, if I go outside, I would probably mop this boy up and down Queen Street. Or I could just tell him to kindly leave. Because guess what? I can't make you want it. You have to want it. And mental health is a big component, right? So one thing I can appreciate about working with the York County Reentry Coalition is our bi-weekly meetings that we have with WellSpan, with Family First, to go over the mental health component, because we have ignored that mental health is real. You got people that are 50 and 60 years old out here in the prison that are dealing with triggers and things that happened when they were 10-year-old, right? But for so long, you know, we grew up in a society where what you did at home stayed at home, okay? Where we don't talk about it outside of this house. So you have these people that are parents and grandparents that they are so emotionally confused and distraught, right, that they can't move forward. But now it's a new day because we're dealing with mental health. We're providing the services. We're making sure that people are on their meds, because that's real, right? You got people that are on their meds while they're incarcerated, but when they get out, there's no plan to make sure that these meds are rolling over, because now they get out, they ain't been on their meds for a month, they go crazy.
And see, that brings us into what we talked about this morning. We have a $1 million grant that we got in collaboration with Family First Health. Family First Health is the holder and the implementer of the grant, but it's in collaboration with York County Reentry Coalition. And it is just for that, to help deal with those gaps from when someone leaves incarceration to the health services that they need. Some people are leaving incarceration with 3 days worth of meds or up to 14 days worth of meds. They're leaving with, hey, you call here and make this referral. Now with Family First Health actually being at the Rock, which they already have a presence there, but with them being there on this scale where we're going to have a nurse care manager, where we'll have a community health worker, they're able to make the referrals up to 90 days before release. They're able to have that initial Zoom meeting with a PCP, because people who are leaving incarceration are 10 times more likely to pass away from an opioid overdose than anyone else. And a lot of it is because of that gap that we're not addressing from the medicated assisted treatment back into the community. Even something as simple as having a pharmacy in the neighborhood that you feel you'll be staying in is crucial. So being able to address that, and also something that Da'laine touched on that I think is important. especially now in the winter, we're seeing an uptake in people who have social and emotional needs. We are breaking this down to trauma that has happened in childhood. One individual specifically has been in and out of incarceration since 15 years old. We have, as a society, have to understand that that person's natural development was halted.
Yeah.
And now they've spent a prolonged period in incarceration where they were subjected to God knows what.
Right.
And when we have children who are being sentenced and also held to an adult criteria in the eye of our criminal justice system, that in itself is a whole disservice that, to me, is a whole different podcast that as a mom I would love to be able to address. But now as an adult, as a 27-year-old adult, we're dealing with the trauma now and trying to help him to understand that. Part of his reentry is understanding norms, understanding relationships, and understanding roles. That's where the support system education comes in. You can have a dad who was incarcerated for 90 days. That was 90 days he wasn't a dad. That was 90 days where his children couldn't rely on him. And now as a society, we give people the open door and tell them, go back into the norms. We want you to be the dad the way society has told you to be the dad. We want you to come into the schools and we want you to be able to watch the school play, not understanding that sometimes even that crowd would just be a trigger. So some of the things we're doing at the Reentry Opportunity Center with PA counseling, with Bro2Go, with Life Changing Pathways, with Union Lutheran Church, is understanding what those social and emotional needs are, but also how do we help reintroduce the norms that come with relationships? It's not just the dad and the child.
Healthy.
That's right.
It's not even just the dad and the child. It could be the caregiver to an older grandparent. You were the person who was there that helped grandma with the groceries, that helped her with going to church. How do you now transition back into that? And I think that we have to normalize, like you said, we have to normalize what this reentry process looks like for a person, but also allow for some space and grace.
Yeah.
Let's get
and not to tackle them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, and this is one thing I can appreciate about the MDT meetings bi-weekly is for everyone to come around a round table to discuss what services are really necessary for this individual, right?
And these are the most complex need people in York County Prison. So this is not just work release. The multidisciplinary team meets and it's personnel from Bro2Go, Life Changing Pathways, Friends and Neighbors, WellSpan Health, MHIDV, the prison, probation, and we're looking at people who have taken an assessment to determine the social determinants of health. And based on their score, we're talking about the most critical individuals who are getting ready to leave within the next 90 days throughout the prison system. And to Da'Laine's point, how are we hooking them up with services?
Yeah.
I wanted to give that back.
No, and I appreciate it because you don't want to fluster them, right? And I've told Bro2Go, we have two components. We have our Bro2Go adult program, then we deal with at-risk youth. So I see it on both sides, right? Where you have a person that's in Youth Valley House and all these other ones, like, this is too much, okay? Same thing for the adults, right? You want them to be in 4 organizations and work a job. Where? Hell, I can't even do that.
Feel like an advocate too.
Right, right. It's too much. So we have to normalize what does each program do? Bro2Go is not a health provider. Bro2Go is not a mental health provider. I'm a mentor. I'm the one that's going to tell you probably what you don't want to hear, but you're going to want to talk to me before you talk to the PO.
I love this kind of visual of everybody is like on this highway and you all have your own lane.
That's right.
But you're all on this highway together going in the
right. But what's your exit? What is your exit, right? Or is your exit for Bro2Go? Nope. I don't need Bro2Go right now. Not saying that, guess what? I'm not going to do a U-turn because that's okay, right? But I don't need Bro2Go right now. I need a medical provider, right? I want to get this done. Then I want to come back down the road and check and take that.